Hello, kindred spirits. Talking about self judgment stuck in the emotional body and the pernicious effects of denial kind of all leaded me to a place where I want to address the inner child. Now, many of you know the inner child. It was an idea, a concept popularized in the 1980s. And really, the inner child, from my work as a Sunon story healer, I regard the inner child as a symbolic representation of the highest level of awareness of your emotional body. All right. And most people do stuff that inner child back down because when they meet it, it's kind of whitey and needy and emotional and sniveling, and it's just really a pain in the rumpus to deal with. So we all do our best to stuff it back down and hide it away and not think about it. That's the worst thing we could do for ourselves. What that emotional child is extremely important to the health and well-being of the whole of us. Because whatever your inner child shows to you, it's showing you the extent to which you can feel not only your own love for you, but God's love for you. Because that's what the emotional body does for us. It really is and should be, if it were not hamstrung and wounded by self judgment, it would be the feeling body. It would feel our own love for self and God's love for us, but it doesn't do that. It can't, not when it is a needy, bleeding, sniveling, whining child. So that this begs the question, why on earth does the emotional part of self remain a child when the rest of self, the mental, emotional, and spiritual parts of self, presumably mature and become an adult? Because certainly as a child, that part of self is definitely in a one down position compared to the rest of self. So why does it stay a child? Why doesn't it grow up? Why doesn't it become the childlike part of self? Again, not the childish part of self, which it does right now because it remains an inner child, but the childlike part of self, the part of self that delights in rainbows and loves to splash through puddles and hunts for unicorns under the four-leaf clover. Well, the reason the emotional body can't mature is self-judgment and denial on top of self-judgment. Self-judgment hampers the emotional body, keeps it from maturing with the rest of self. And that is a truly unhealthy, unbalanced situation for anyone to be in. And we're all in that situation because we all have emotional bodies that are immature compared to the rest of us when we are adults. I mean, I remember one client I had whose emotional body appeared as a 6-month-old child. And that was it. That was his arrested development. And do you know why it was arrested? It was arrested because he suffered extreme emotional abuse at the hands of his father, who was drunk at the time, and his father's drinking buddies. And it had stopped his emotional development at that age, and it had never moved forward until we released the associated self judgments and vows. So I beg of you, pay attention to your emotional body. Start finding ways to release self-judgment, not at the conscious level, but at the emotional level. When you do, you will find that when you go in to meet that inner child, it's no longer an inner child. It becomes your inner childlike adult, and it also becomes a mature, full partner with the rest of self in helping you be healthy and whole. But you can't do that as long as you're denying how you're feeling and stuffing your emotional body back. That won't work. You want to embrace it. But when you do, please embrace the emotional child in private. For some people, it will be a happy reunion, but for too many others, finding and bringing that emotional child back up to your conscious awareness is not the happiest of experiences. Now, in Soon On Story Healing, we can do it in a less painful manner, but it will be emotional. And you deserve privacy and attention from an individual who can help you and support you through your healing process. So, lots more to talk about the dark side of denial. We'll get to that. Until then, vaya con Dios.